For being here tonight. We're going to talk about this topic. Remember, I said to you that we're going to do let's talk about it the third Wednesday of every month, where we're going to get eventually I'm sure we're going to go to 2 or 3 cells, and that we will just get together and mind fellowship and then talk about something. So, I just want to start off a little bit with an introduction to apologetics. So, apologetics means it's just a reasoned argument about justification of your faith, justifying your faith or your religious belief. So it's not an emotion. So if they ask you, why don't you guys do that or that, you can't answer somewhat. Understand? You have to give a reason. And this is what we're going to do here. We're going to take these difficult things and we're going to give arguments for you. If you come into a situation like that you will be able to answer what they ask. So we here on Wednesday evening. So we're gonna ask you if there's anything that you would like us to talk about, and we're gonna do that then. So it must come from the cell groups and next topics. So why did I choose this topic first of all? I just want to give you a breakdown of what we are sitting with Generation Z, Gen Z. So Gen Z is from 13 years old to 29 years old. And if you go and look at the Gen Z profile, the things that I just want to put your attention to is we say religious breakdown. So at Gen Z, 31 believe nothing in part. 17 is atheist agnostic, and then so what we then see, and 7% is all others, but what you see there basically is that 50% of Gen Z, from 13-year-olds to 29-year-olds, don't believe anymore. If we go and look at the silent generation, that's us now, the boomers, and go down there, you will see how this gets smaller and how this gets exponentially bigger. And this is the group that we have to start preparing for the future. And this is a group that's going to have a great impact, and your children is going to be there within a few years, and that's why we want to prepare you for this. So the next thing again, if we go at religious service attendance by generations, we go and look at Gen Z again. So if we go and see, never. 30% of them have never attended this service. 18% seldom, and 14% is a yearly, So what we see here is that 70% of this generation has attended a service less than once a year. So, and then we are going to see, if we go monthly, at least we've got 10% there that will come once a month, 16% that will come weekly, and 16% weekly, and 7% more than weekly. So what we see here is that we basically got a 30% of them that will come to church. Right? If you've got 50% that don't believe, and you've got 70% that won't come to church, then you must go and say to yourself, what are we going to do to reach those people? So first thing is, what is the profile of a Gen Z? So, now this is just it can be she or he or whatever, consistently open to new ideas. So consistently open to new ideas. So this is generation coming there, so I'm open to anything new. I'm vulnerable to that. I can change a strategy in a fleeting second. So, we got this thing that when we started working, we studied loyalty and that type of thing. No. The loyalty doesn't really feature in their framework. Clearly relying on gut instinct, more emotional decision making than by research. So they care little about religion. So religion, where we would make decisions with a religion background, they will not. They just don't really care. And they constantly telling themselves to be better than they was yesterday. They are driven, and when they self-starters or create a vision, and entirely on their own, they will just push it through. So the important thing is care little about religion, gut and emotional decisions, change the strategy in a fleeting second, and are consistently open to new ideas. So that's why, Edmund, for me, it's so important that we start going over onto audiovisual. If you go and look at this Gen Z, then you will go and see what do they do in their free time. 56% listen to music, watching YouTube videos, 54% video gaming, 45%, social media, 42%, watching movies, 40%. So, the generation is now for spending more time online than any other generation, and an average being 3 hours a day. So 3 hours a day, they are there. So we got a generation who don't go to church, that's open to a lot of influence from outside that make emotional decisions. And because they don't go to church, so where is the area of influence? The area of influence is in the YouTube videos and those type of things. It's such a negative thing if you know that they're open for input. They're sitting there for 3 hours a day, spending time there, and that's where we have to go in. And that's why it's so important for me that we drive the audiovisual project. So, but this is also a reason why we're going to do this tonight, because they ask questions like this, they don't just like us that we born Christians, and we sort of grow up in religion, nothing, and they constantly ask questions and they want their questions answered. So now the decisive moment in the splitting between religion and science came in November 24, 1859, when Charles Darwin wrote The Origins of Species, and that's when he then he coined the word evolution, and then evolution, and the one why was so important because up to that stage the Bible was the reference for life. So the people would then go and like there's people that didn't believe, but they didn't have another answer, a counter answer to the Bible. And when Darwin came up, suddenly there was a counter to the Bible, and then atheists and a lot of scientists just jumped on the wagon and drove that back. And so that was a decisive moment in splitting religion and science. Then So when I say to you there's a decisive moment for the human mankind was in 1850 when Charles Darwin wrote that book. For Generation Z, the decisive moment came on 30 December 2007. So what happened on 30 December 2007? These four guys, they came together and they had a highly publicized talk where they sat in a venue and they exchanged radical ideas. So the four guys was what they call them the scientists is Richard Dawkins, the scholar Sam Harris, the skeptic Daniel Dennett, and the rebel Christopher Hitchens. Now, so they are called the Four Horsemen. Because what they've done is when these four guys came together, each of them stands for one specific thing. And you will see, so what Dawkins said is, I'm against religion because it teaches us to be satisfied with not understanding the world. Sam Harris was religious moderation is the product of secular knowledge and scriptural ignorance. And then it was the only meaning of life worth caring about is the one that can withstand our best efforts to examine it. And then the Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens, who's a rebel, as they say, that which can be asserted without evidence So what they said is the electrifying examination of ideas on this remarkable occasion was intense and wide-ranging. And it was a eye-opener debate which they had, and they said it was about religion and atheism, science and sense, and it speaks with urgency to our present age. That was the message that came from. So the present age is Gen Z. So this is another article from one of the magazines. Also known as the Four Horsemen of the Non-Apocalypse, these people have become world-renowned for their attack on religious belief and the invasion of people who believe in God. So up to that stage, there was atheists and there was guys that believed God, and so on. And they were, I'm going to say they were civil with each other. But when they came on the scene, these four guys, all four are brilliantly, highly articulated, and entirely sure of themselves. Collectively, they have millions of followers. At one time, atheists quietly went about their business and were not evangelists for atheism. These four, each in his own way, are evangelists for atheism. Even though Hitchens is dead, his book and articles live on and remain popular. At different times, each has been listed among the 100 most influential people in the world. So, when they came on the scene, how scary is that? Yes. So when they came on the scene, they were sort of like these new pop stars, and they got a cult following. And so what happens is they became a spokespersons to the guys that, well, now the Gen Z, they hang on to what they say. They release it, they clearly came for Christianity, not like before where atheism is sit by and civil discussions. They really come out, they go onto public platforms and they speak openly about atheism and the absurdity of religion. So Richard Dawkins, he wrote the book, The God Delusion. Sam Harris, Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. Christopher Hitchens, God is Not Great. Our Religion Poisons Everything. Those are the books, those are the messages that's given out, that's currently out there. And as I say, they've got millions of followers. So we have to sort of counter these guys when we go into a debate with young people, because they get influenced by them, because they got 7 days that divide the world, the beginning accordance to Genesis and science. Whenever you get a chance, this is a brilliant book to read. So let's start. Creation versus evolution. So we start on this basis. There is no scientific proof of the origin of the universe. There is no scientific proof of the origin of life. This is the basis. Then we say facts. The matter can't develop out of nothing, and life can't develop out of non-living matter. This is now at this stage what is standing there. This is where we're going to work from. It's never been proven. So we get three types of worldviews. And a worldview is a framework of beliefs, values, and assumptions where you interpret experiences. So when you look at the world, and we as Christians, we will look through the glasses of a Christian, and then our decisions are made according to our Christian beliefs. And this is a worldview. So when we go and look at the worldviews and creation, there's three types. There's a theist. That's the people that believe in God. God created the world. Then we get the evolutionary theists. Those are the people that believe in guided evolution. They say God created the world, but the world is sustained by guided evolution. And then the third one is the naturalistic evolution, New Darwinian, unguided evolution. So this group say that God is in control and He guides the evolution. This group says there's no God, it's unguided evolution, and we stand on what Darwin has said. So if we go and look at this side, theism versus naturalism, which is basically the same as atheism, where theism is say eternal God versus eternal universe. So they say creator with an intelligent plan which is shown in nature science versus formed by random formation and sustaining of itself without any supernatural involvement. Theism, God made the earth and we can see it in nature. They say form a earth and universe formed by random formation and the world is, or the cosmos is sustaining itself. So let's go and look at the different worldviews now. So there's a scientific view, there's a young earth creationism, old earth creationism, theistic evolution, and then philosophical naturalism. So naturalism, when I say to you, is basically atheism. But if you look there, they say this is a Christian view. These three are Christian views. Why? Because they say there was the world is created by God. The scientific view say no, God doesn't play a role. The philosophical naturalism, so they say no, God doesn't play any role here. They see view of man, no competence. Man is just another animal. There's nothing special about man. We say man, these three groups say man is a pinnacle of creation. Now the timing is, they say that the church was made after the earth was made in billions of years. The young earth creationism says 6 days. The old earth creationists say billions of years. The theistic evolution says billions of years, and they say billions of years. So basically now, on the timing, that's the first time that we start distinguishing between these groups. Up to now, it was the same. So now we've got the young earth creationism 6 days, and these two still go and stand at billions of years. And then the mechanism, I say evolution is an automatic process done by itself. We say the young earth creationism, special creation. God initiated or directed evolution. So this is what the third group says. So God initiated, God created, and He directs the evolution process. And then you get the philosophical naturalism, they say unguided evolution. So I would like to just spend a little bit of time between these three groups because there's religion created an intelligent design. And they believe that the divine being created the universe and life directly, and then that is just a theistic. So they say the universe was created, and it was created directly by God who said, and it happened. So the theistic, the evolutionary creationists, because they also fall under this group, they say that God created the universe and uses evolutionary processes to bring about life diversity. That's the difference between the two. But the heading there is still the same. God created. So what is evolutionary creation? They say God created and sustainer of all things, and evolution is the best scientific explanation for the relatedness of life on Earth. Most of the Christian scientists believe this view. So they also say, this is what the evolution creationists say. So what are the central ideas that define it? They say, we believe that God created and sustained all things. We believe that God acts purposefully in creation just as He does in our lives, and that He continues to actively uphold and sustain creation. We believe in the full divinity and full humanity of Jesus Christ, and the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. We believe that all humans are made in the image of God, and all humans have a sinful nature. We believe in salvation by grace through faith in Christ alone. So now, we got Christians here that say God created the earth, but He uses evolution. And then they go on and say all the things that we as Christians say. So the only thing is that they say is that they use evolution. But from there on, everything which we believe, they believe. So, they say, God causes the universe to come into being. God sets the laws of physics and the fine-tuned initial condition. God sustains the universe in being. The universe develops and life subsequently emerges without any more special, discrete, supernatural input from God until God creates human beings. At a particular moment, God specifically confirmed His image on a hominid that had already emerged from the gradual evolutionary process. So up to here, both groups believe the same. But then here they start and say, God didn't actively intervene there. So we say, on the one group say, they said God created clouds, and we believe that was the whole process. They say God initiated the process of creating clouds, but then from there on it went more onto universe developed itself without intervention from God anymore. And then lastly, this is the important thing. They say that at a particular moment, God especially confirmed His image on a hominid that already emerged from the gradual evolutionary process. So let's go and say what's a hominid. So,
God saw one of the oaks looking funny and said, you look like
you are the first to become a human. So a hominid is the group consisting of all modern and extinct great apes. That is modern humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans, plus all their immediate ancestors. So here, a hominid, they develop now to this level of a hominid. And then from there on, from the hominids, you start getting the hominin. This is a group consisting of modern humans, extinct human species, Neanderthal man, and all those type of things, and all our immediate ancestors. They were members of the genera Homo australopithecus, that's not going to determine if you're going to go to heaven or not. So, and that then we say that we start having liberty on that issue, and then in all things charity. Charity means to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, you have to be ready for an answer, but yet you do it with gentleness and respect. Always, when we differ with each other, always gentleness and respect. In essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty for the person to have his own view, and in all things charity. Yeah. So what is our core beliefs? If I say what is the essentials that we will not compromise on? Trinity of God, creation, the fall of man, salvation, incarnation, life, death, and the burial of Jesus, resurrection of Jesus, ascension, expectation of his return, and final judgment. Those ones are core essentials, and we cannot compromise on those things. If there's people that differ from what we believe on that one, then it's a serious issue. Then it's not a fringe thing. And that's where we really take a stand on. Right? So, if we go and look at the Bible, you will see that the Bible includes theological information, literacy, historically, and scientific. So it covers a broad way of content. So the core message of the Bible is God's redemptive plan to save humanity from sin and restore creation through Jesus Christ, ultimately for his own glory. That's the Bible. That's a message of the Bible. The Bible is literal in general. It's not a scientific language. That's the one thing that you must know. It's not a scientific language. The Bible is literal. If it was written in the level of a 20th century scientist, nobody would have understood what was said. So it was written so that ordinary people in biblical times could understand. So you can't go and take the Bible. So there's a lot of scientific arguments against the Bible and use it as a scientific reference book. It's not a scientific reference book, but it's part of the Bible. And when a biblical text is incompatible, so Rabbi Sadia Gaon, and it comes out from the rabbis because they do the Torah and they worked on the Torah years and years and years on that one. That's the 5 books of Moses. And what they then came to a consensus is they say when a biblical text is incompatible with reason or observation, it should be interpreted figuratively, poetic, or allegorically, or some other way. So, when the Bible text says something that is incompatible with reason or observation, then we move from literal to figuratively, or poetically, or anything else. And I'm going to show you now as an example. So, science against religion. So, Stephen Gould of Harvard, paleontologist, well known in the world on NOMA, non-overlapping magisterial. So, what they say is misnomer. This is what naturalists say. Science is true and religion is fantasy, and there's no overlapping. This standpoint of the naturalist. And why is there a difference now that we suddenly get to religion, which is fantasy, and the other groups which say it's true? So, we're going to go over to the fixed earth theory. In 400 BC, Aristotle said that the earth was fixed and the sun, stars, planets revolved around it. 250 CE before Christ, Aristarchus came and he said there's a heliocentric system with planets that goes around the sun. So they nailed him and said, no way, so we believe Aristotle. Copernicus came in 1543 and he said the earth and planets orbit around the sun. And then in 1632, Galileo Galilei said the earth rotate around its own axis. Also elliptically orbit is established firm and secure. It shall never be moved. 1 Samuel, pillars of the earth are the Lord's. Psalm 104:5. So that it should not be moved forever. So this is what's good in the word. So when you read this, you will say for yourself, the Bible says that the sun rotates around the earth because the earth is fixed. And this is the reason why the church said Galileo in Hausa is because of that viewpoint. They said, no. The church is not fixed. The sun is fixed and the church is that's why it rotates around the sun. So now you can see for yourself when I say to you, when you go and look at the words here where they say, you take the words literally, but when you see that it's against something that you believe or that's proven, not you believe that's observed and proven, then we go and say it figuratively. And this is what we say there. The Bible was used figuratively there because we know now that the earth rotates around the sun. So the lessons that we learn from Galileo is it teaches us we should be humble enough to distinguish between what the Bible says and our own interpretation of it. And a lot of times we go into arguments of our own interpretation without doing a lot of research. So Genesis says, the text is a mark of a prose narrative describing a succession of events. That's Genesis. The text is also written in exalted semi-poetic language to make it memorable but not taking anything away or adding to the narrative. And God saw that it was good and God said, so just there's a little bit of a poetic language there and just making it more memorable. But doesn't take anything away from the text. The main actor of Genesis is God, who is a supreme God but stands outside his creation. It was Moses' first book, 13th to 15th century before Christ, and there was no mythical construct that you will go and see like with the Greek gods and those type of things. So Andrew Parker, he's a research director at the Natural History Museum in London, and he says the Genesis enigmas. The opening page of Genesis is scientifically accurate, but was written long before science was known. How did the writer of this page come to write this creation account? And this is the enigma which they sit with the scientists. They can't just ignore it because it is the accurate account if you go and look at the sequence. But it was written by Moses up there on a pergament or whatever, with a feather or something like this. How the heck did Moses know that this is how the earth was created? It couldn't have just been a man-made thing. Because when we look now back at scientists say, you go and look at the order of events and you see that the sequence is correct in the development as well. So we've got the young earth and the old earth. The young earth says 4,500 to 6,000 years, the old says 4.5 billion years. That's how old the earth is. So, Augustine of Hippo, he said, what kind of days these are is difficult or even impossible for us to imagine, to say nothing of describing them. And this is a general fact among the scholars in the world. It's impossible for us to imagine, to say what really happened, because the first 3 days passed without the sun, which was made on the 4th day. So that was the nature of the first 3 days. So what was the nature of the first 3 days? We don't know. We don't know if it was billions of years or millions of years or whatever. So we only know that when the sun started coming up and night became, that was on day 4. How long was the first 3 days? And there we can just go and postulate a lot of theories on that, but we don't know. So Psalm, the other thing then that makes it more difficult, Psalm 94 verse 4 says, 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday, and 1 day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day. So God is outside time. So now you just go and add that as well. So the views that we've got a calendar day view. Young earth created as creation is 7. We're done in 6 days, 24 hours a day. And then you get the day age view. The old thousands of years and the scientists only from the 20th century. They said the Earth was just developed naturally and that there was no beginning. And then Einstein came with the relativity theory, and then from there what they saw is that the planets is still moving out. So that means if they're moving out, then if you trace it back, there must be a beginning. So God is the designer now. You get the designer, Henry Ford. The mechanism is a production line, and Ford Galaxy is the product. So God was a designer. Now they go and say that the Big Bang was a mechanism. The Big Bang was originally a label put on Fascinating Mystery by Sir Fred Hoyle. He said it's a fascinating mystery what happened there, and he called it the Big Bang. But then scientists use it now to explain their belief that the universe, space-time had a beginning, and now they use it that it was a Big Bang. Mencius said that beginning says that the best data we have to what I would have predicted is found in the book of Moses, Psalms, and the Bible as a whole. The reason of creation is God created the world to be inhabited by man. That is why the world was created. After creation, God continues to sustain his creation. So we say, for by him all things were created, and in all things are held together. So he didn't just create and then manage, he created and he sustained. So now, the criticism against the theistic evolution, now those are the guys that goes and say God did it through a natural process of evolution. And so they say, on day 3, then God speaks again between inorganic and organic. So, on day 3, we had the earth and heaven and the sky and everything was there. And then God speaks again for the second time on that day. So there's so many things that you find common in these different areas. We must have a common ancestor. So Darwin's gradual biological evolution said matter plus time plus chance plus natural selection plus random variation plus random mutations. Survival of the fittest produced man. So man produced your mind, and your mind introduced you to the idea of God, but there is no God. This is what they say from that side. And the last universal common ancestor, they say it's the most recent population of which all organisms now living on Earth share. And they say the Luca probably lived in the high temperature water of deep sea vents near ocean floor magma flows about 4 billion years ago. And that is a common descent. So they trace it back and say, we see the last universal common ancestor that started the process to come out of the sea, and that was 4.5 billion years. The Earth was made, the prokaryotes started, 3.8 billion, and then as they developed more and more, and then they developed over into eukaryotes, plants, sponges, corals, fish, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, primates, birds, and then lastly humans. All of them coming from that one Luca, that 4.5 billion years ago. And this was natural selection. Then back when you get to the human, that's why I said to you the hominids, and then the hominids. So from there on we developed, and this is where Homo sapiens end. Okay? So this is in short. doesn't mean that that access beyond purpose, and it doesn't mean that that access, it means it can be interpreted into two different areas. So the one thing, and this is on the one that the most scientists says, is evolution creationism. They say, again, as I said to you, they say, listen, God created. We believe all the core principles. But we say that God created earth and He put in place a system that creation will maintain itself. The one thing that John Lennox has got a problem with, and the problem is that when do you say, so when do God come in and say, now the jump from chimpanzee or one of those ones to man? And that's where he's got a problem with that issue. What would you
I
say?
love that place when it says the fourth man.
Yeah.
That's the picture I would
Yes.
hold to, because that's what the Bible says, and that's the most intimate and
Yeah, absolutely.
but the thing is, we don't have to go to Canada or Switzerland.
No, well, I want to say also that issue, that's a very important issue. But now, so what they say is that there was a that said, just want to see here. That said that they started off 4.5, or the universe started 14 billion years ago, the planets and the stars. And they test things from there, 6 billion years ago. And they're testing like more talking about the cloud. And then they say the Earth started 4.5 billion years ago. And then now every one of them, in the fish, 800 billion years. Then man, 115 billion years ago. So the scientists dated carbon dating and that type of thing. You go look at the rings, world